I'm here with the introduction for my Booktube Rereadathon August reflections video. That took me a moment. The prompt for this month was to read a second chance book, and I chose 1984 because I read this in high school. I think it was actually 10 years ago that I read this book, and I hated it. I honestly don't remember why, though. I just remember having a strong hatred for this book, but it does sound like my kind of book. It sounds very interesting. People love it. People think it's well done. I don't know that my opinion will change at all. I'm down for it to change, but I'm also be okay if it doesn't change. I'm just kind of curious as to why, at least if I read it and hate it still, I will know why I hated it. So we're gonna get into this. It is the 30th, so I have 2 days to read this book, but I'm not gonna force myself through if it is the kind of thing that's gonna take me longer. I might be a few days late this month, which is kind of the norm, honestly. But I'm still reading all these books. I'm still reading them on a monthly basis. I'm a little bit late sometimes, but that's okay. Worse things have happened. But I am excited to get into this, and if I don't hate it as much as I remember, then maybe it might be time to explore more George Orwell. And even if not, then I can discuss why I hate this book as an adult and not be like, well, when I was 15, I thought this was garbage. But we'll see. We'll see how I feel. So I have finished part 1 of 1984. I did check, and there are 3 parts, so I will probably update you guys on my feelings after each part. But I finished part 1, the first 88 pages, and honestly, I don't hate it. I don't love it, but it's solidly a 3 to 4 star read right now. I think it's an interesting discussion on the world. I think the world itself is interesting. I think it brings up a lot of good points. I'm not in love with some of his writing style. I think some of it is kind of rough. They're just paragraphs and paragraphs of dialogue, or the main character, Winston, is just sitting there musing a lot, and there's nothing going on. There's no action. It's just his thoughts on the meaning of life, which is a little boring. But I definitely don't hate it the way I did as a teenager, which again, I'm only 88 pages in to this 250 page book, but so far I'm down. I don't know if this is going to keep up. I don't know if maybe at some point I will change my mind and hate this, but so far it is worthwhile, and I'm glad I'm reading it. And I don't know, maybe I was just a dumb 15-year-old when I last read this, because I found a note in here, and I was definitely 15 when I read this, and I was definitely in high school. I found one of my hall passes in this book, which was kind of yikes. Wow, that was a long time ago, but not hating it. And honestly, that's all I could ask for. If I finish this book thinking that was okay, I'm going to consider this a win, because I really hated Orwell as a teenager, and as an adult so far, I don't. I remembered why I hate this book. Or I'm not even sure I remembered why, because when I was 15, I don't think I could really articulate why I hated this book, what problem I had with this book. I just knew I hated it. After reading that first part, I was like, I don't know, this seems decent, this seems alright. Not great, not wonderful, but alright. After reading the second part, I understand. I am now, I don't know, I'm not gonna say almost done, but I'm getting kind of close to almost done. I hate this so much. It's so miserable. I don't understand why people enjoy this book. I really don't. The first part was fine. And then, in the second part, you meet the stupid girl and the pointless romance and the boring book. Oh my god. Okay, so my problems with his writing style that I mentioned very briefly, they still stand. They're not the worst thing ever, but I don't love them, so this book was never going to be a favorite just because of his writing. It's also kind of sexist, which I'm not really holding against this book. Is it cringy when he describes a woman's body as an overripe turnip? Yeah. But at the same time, it was written in the 40s, so I don't really care. I do, it does bother me, but it's one of those okay, it was written in the 40s, it was always going to be sexist, so whatever. But the girl, oh my god, I hate her. She's so annoying. Not as a person, she's fine. But as a character, she's just annoying. I don't care about her. I'm interested in Winston and his story and the world. And instead, he's busy screwing this girl, and I don't care. And their romance, I don't like their romance. I don't care. I'm not invested. They just randomly meet. She slips him a note, this says I love you, and he's like, oh my god, I love her too, even though like 40 pages ago I wanted to rape and murder her, and he tells her this, and then she laughs, and I'm like, what? Like, I understand like an unlikable romance, but it's not even that like I hate it and I love to hate it and I think it's fascinating. I just don't care about their romance. Period. Like, I'm done. I don't care. Like, whatever. I don't want to read about it. I think it's annoying. It's a distraction from what I am interested in the book, and god, I hate it. But like the worst part is the book. He gets this book that's like, I don't even know what it is. It's like some communist, anti-government, whatever, anti-Big Brother book about the world and like Big Brother, and it's like teaching him things. But it's not even teaching him things, because he's reading this book and he's like, I already know everything in this book. This book is reassuring because it confirms everything I know. And it's not even just that he's reading it, but like long passages and chapters from the book are written in here. Like pages and pages and pages that are just from the book. And it's boring. Like, is the information in there valid? Yeah, sure. It's like a vaguely interesting discussion on like the world and society and how things work. It's basically George Orwell's thoughts, I assume. But the thing is, we already know this information. Winston already knows this information. We know it from the context of the world and the way things are discussed. We get it through contextual clues in the story, and we get there on our own. And then we get this book, and you're just reading everything that you already learned about this world in this dry textbook-like style. Like, I didn't gain anything from reading that. Like, yes, it tells you, like, explicitly about this world and, like, the issues with this world or whatever. I don't know. It's, like, explaining the economics and, like, why the government, like, keeps the poor people poor and, like, keeps the rich people rich, and like it's explaining why the world works the way it does, why wars work the way they do. But it's like, we already knew this from reading the prior 150 pages of this book or something, 130, 100. Like, we read that about this world, and it's like, you can come to that conclusion on your own. Like, I already came to that conclusion. I don't need to read this long boring book about it. And it's boring. Like, I wanted to skip those sections, just like look to where the book stopped and go there. And I almost did, but I didn't. I actually read it all and gained nothing from that. And god, I hate this book. I don't think I will ever understand why anyone likes this book. I'm not done with it yet. It's probably going to be a 2-star just because, like, I do think it does have some interesting commentary, and I think the world is interesting, and I thought the first part was interesting. Like, the first part was solid. It was just everything after was pointless, and I still have, you know, I don't know how much I have left. 186. So I have like 40 pages left, maybe 50. I don't know. The third part, I'm gonna read that tonight, and hopefully it's not as bad, because at least at this point, the romance is kind of like not so much an issue. Hopefully. I don't really remember. So I finished part 3. I finished the book. 2 stars. I hate this book. I don't understand why it's one of those beloved classics that everyone loves. Like, I appreciate the world. I think the world, the government, all of that is very interesting. Like, really, I wouldn't say well done, but like, I do think it's well done to a degree. I think it's interesting, and I'm down to read about it. I also really like Winston's character arc. I think his character arc is interesting. I really enjoy it. I like that. What I don't like is the storytelling. I don't like Orwell's writing style, and I just don't like the choices he made with the story and what he wanted to focus on. I don't like it at all. I think it's awful. I hate it. I find it unpleasant. It feels like this whole book, not so much the romance, I have no more comments on that. I just hate the romance in it. But it feels like the whole book is just talking down to you. Like, for all that he, like, supposedly hated intellectuals and all that, he sure is kind of a condescending ass. Like, I hate Orwell. I hate this book. Like, and I was down for my opinion to have changed on this book. Like, I was reading it, I was giving it a second chance. Like, I was, 15 the first time I read it. But there is something satisfying about rereading a book that you just hate, and hating it just as much, if not more, the second time you read it, and just validating that hate. Like, there's something nice and satisfying and reassuring about that. But I did have one comment that I wanted to say about, like, the ending. It is a spoiler, so if you don't want to be spoiled for this book, I will leave a timestamp of where you can skip to. But the ending, I had an issue with this as a 15-year-old too, and this was like the one thing I remembered. In the end, he is tortured with rats, and that is kind of like the final straw. The rats come to get him, and he's like, no, like, take my girlfriend instead. Which, like, okay, mate. And when I was 15, I thought my issue was that I really liked rats. I thought rats were sweet. I had pet rats. I thought that was lovely. That's not my issue. Like, I mean, I do agree, but, like, I can easily just swap that with spiders for me, and, like, whatever. My issue is that the rat scene comes after all kinds of physical and psychological torture. Like, for days, weeks, months, possibly years. I don't know. But just, like, constant torture in a variety of ways. And I just don't buy into the fact that it's the rats that get him. That, like, after being beaten for so long, after being left without sleep, left without food, humiliated constantly, just, like, beaten down physically and mentally. I just don't buy into the fact that rats were the final straw, you know? Like, I feel like there is so much else that, like, rats would have been a more trivial thing than they were. Like, and I know some people would disagree with me on that, but for me, I don't buy into that. And that was kind of my issue with the ending, which, like, didn't really change my thoughts on the book at all, but I did want to discuss that. I just don't like this book, and I don't understand why it's such a popular, beloved dystopian classic, whatever. People love this, and I don't get it. Like, I do know some people who don't like this book, and that does give me some hope, but, like, I can't stand this. And there are some books that are classics where I'm like, I don't really like this, but I do understand why people feel it's important. And I kind of do with regards to the world, but I just don't think it's well written. I don't think it's well told. I don't think it's good. I hate this. I hate Orwell. I don't know. I've only read 2 of Orwell's books, and Animal Farm is probably unfair just because I was, like, 14 and really did not understand what that book was about, but I can't imagine that will be one that I'm rereading. So, yeah. Unfortunate reread, but at least now I can hate this book as an adult and have reasons for my hate for it. I won't just be like, well, I remember hating it. Don't know why. It sounds good, but I hated it. Now I'm like, no, I just hate it. And then on to something a little more fun. In September, the prompt for the rereadathon is to reread a book that is labeled for below your current age group. So, for example, if you are an adult, read a book that is children's, middle grade, YA, anything that's like a lower age group than adult. If you're like 16, then read a book that's, you know, for middle grade or children's or whatever. I had a lot of options for this because I have read a lot of YA in my lifetime, and honestly, because I read a lot of YA and most of what I read was YA up until, well, when I was a teenager, up until I was like 23 basically, most of the books I've read this year have been YA. So I had many books to choose from, but I wound up going with We Are Okay by Nina LaCour, which I read like 2 years ago on Booktube. 2.5 years ago, I don't know. I love this. I gave it 5 stars at the time. Michael, who actually originally created this readathon, he created the 2018 version of the rereadathon. I asked him for permission to, like, continue doing it since he wouldn't be doing it this year and I really wanted to. And he had one request, which was that I reread this book. Because I originally read it the summer we were both on Booktube and we were friends and we were talking a lot. I read it, gave it 5 stars, loved it. He picked it up and then DNFed it, so I think he's kind of curious if my love remains for this book, which I kind of expected to. I've read Nina LaCour before, and this was not really a surprise for me, so I've been looking forward to rereading this for a while, and I probably honestly would have reread this regardless of his request, because I do love this book. I think it's wonderful, and I think Nina LaCour's writing style is just beautiful. Let me know down below if you are participating in the rereadathon, if you participated in August, or if you plan to in September. As always, the link to the original announcement video will be down below, and then all the information is in that. So definitely check it out if you're interested. I've been doing it every month since January, and it's been super fun for me, so I'd love to see if anyone else is still participating. As always, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see y'all again soon.